The last video you will ever need to watch to truly understand the first Hermetic law, the law of mentalism, begins here. Right now, in this very moment, your mind stands at the threshold between the ordinary and the extraordinary, between the surface of life and the depth of consciousness, where Thoth, the scribe of the gods, recorded the eternal secrets of existence. Imagine for a second that your thoughts are not random, that the world you perceive is shaped by the mind itself, that everything you see, touch, and feel is a reflection of a deeper, unseen intelligence. This is not a metaphor. This is the reality that the Hermetic law of mentalism reveals. The universe itself is mind, and understanding this is the key to awakening to the subtle patterns that govern all existence. Write in the comments, "I am ready to see with the mind of the cosmos," and let this affirmation resonate within you as we step together into the realm of mental alchemy. Become a member of this Thoth channel now and gain access to insights and awakenings that few ever experience. A chance to align your inner mind with the eternal flow of wisdom. Feel your body, your breath, the subtle weight of your thought. Imagine them not as fleeting whispers, but as seeds of reality. Thoth, Hermes Trismegistos, the divine scribe, teaches that everything begins with thought. Every creation, every shift in circumstance, every encounter is first imagined in the infinite mental plane. Most people live unaware, carried by patterns and routines, their minds scattered across distractions. Yet those who awaken, even partially, start to see the invisible threads connecting events, people, and moments. Let this visualization unfold. See your life as a reflection of your inner world, each thought a brush stroke on the canvas of reality. As you notice this, feel the subtle power of choosing your thoughts, the first step toward transmutation and conscious creation. When the mind becomes aware that it shapes reality, paradox arises. You are both prisoner and master of your own existence. This is not intimidation, but liberation. Many imagine freedom as escaping circumstances or manipulating outcomes. Hermetically, freedom begins internally. By mastering the currents of your own consciousness, consider your mind as a temple. Each belief, each emotion, each mental image is a pillar. If the pillars are misaligned, your internal temple trembles. Align them, focus them, and you begin to resonate with the universal mind, tapping into the very intelligence that Thoth recorded in the Emerald Tablet. Can you feel it? The hum of consciousness within your chest, subtle but undeniable? That hum is the voice of mental law, guiding you, waiting for you to listen. Every day people believe they are powerless, as though events happen to them without reason. Yet nothing occurs outside the mind. The law of mentalism states, the all is mind. The universe itself is mental. Your external reality is a mirror. It is as if the world itself were ink on the page and your thoughts the quill. When you see the patterns, the repetitions, the synchronicities, you are reading the text of your own consciousness. Those who comprehend this law begin to act, not react. They recognize mental triggers as opportunities for alignment, not as obstacles. In this space, the student becomes the alchemist of the mind, transmuting unconscious habits into conscious design. How often do you allow your mind to wander aimlessly, unaware of the currents shaping your destiny? Pause and feel this truth. Thoth also taught that the mind has dual aspects, the conscious and the unseen. The conscious is aware of daily life, of small interactions and choices. The unseen, vast and infinite, is where the fabric of the universe is formed. Your thoughts are like keys, and when directed with intention, they unlock doors to realms unseen. Picture, for a moment, a library of light, infinite in dimension. Each book a memory, each symbol a law, each word a universe. You are both the seeker and the scribe within this library. Every mental image, every internal repetition, writes upon this cosmic manuscript. Many live unaware, their inner quill guided by habit rather than insight. By choosing your focus, you change the narrative of your existence. To truly awaken, The mind must practice discipline without force. Observe your thoughts as a mirror reflects light, without judgment, without interference. Notice the patterns of fear, desire, and expectation. These are not enemies. They are indicators. They reveal where the mind has unconsciously aligned itself with outdated models and inherited patterns. The law of mentalism invites you to see beyond these inherited structures, to step into awareness of the mental plane where the seeds of reality are planted. Each thought becomes a tool, each perception a lever of transformation. When practiced consistently, this awareness allows the soul to navigate its own evolution with clarity and precision. Now consider the role of symbols and archetypes in this process. Thoth encoded knowledge in images, in metaphors, in the architecture of thought itself. Symbols are not mere decorations. They are bridges between the conscious and the infinite mind. By understanding them, by feeling their vibration, you tune into the mental currents that shape reality. For example, imagine the symbol of an eye, not just as a physical organ, but as the lens of perception and insight. Every time you reflect on it, your mental focus sharpens, aligning your inner vision with universal patterns. This is the work of mental alignment, the very practice the ancients called initiation. Many seekers struggle because they think understanding is enough. Comprehension without integration is like reading a map without walking the path. Mentalism requires practice, reflection, and subtle recalibration of inner attention. Begin with your day-to-day thoughts. Notice patterns, recurring themes, and automatic reactions. Each observation is a step toward mastery. Let each thought carry intentionality. Each feeling act as feedback from the universe. The student who embraces this discipline slowly transforms habitual thinking into a conscious dialogue with the mind of the cosmos. What might your life become if your mental habits were consciously sculpted rather than unconsciously repeated? Awareness of mental law also brings humility. The all is mind, yet this mind operates with infinite complexity. As Thoth taught, wisdom is knowing that knowing is only a part of a greater whole. When you approach life as a reflection of mental processes, you begin to see the interconnection between your inner world and the external environment. Every encounter, every event, every emotional response becomes a mirror of deeper mental structures. Observe this without resistance, and you start to feel the subtle flow that carries life itself, the current that moves both stars and human consciousness. Consider the power of thought in shaping not only your experiences, but your perception of time and space. Mentalism suggests that linearity is a construct of conscious awareness. In the mind of the all, past, present, and future, exist simultaneously, accessible through focused thought. By directing attention inward, by aligning your consciousness with archetypal patterns, you may begin to perceive moments not as sequential, but as interconnected points of influence. This is subtle and requires patience, but it allows the mind to navigate life with precision, using inner awareness as a guide rather than outer events as the master. Every practice you undertake to observe, refine, and direct thought feeds the inner transformation. This is not a one-time act, but a continuous process. As you cultivate this awareness, even small shifts in perception ripple outward, influencing decisions, relationships, and personal alignment. Thoth called this mental alchemy, not as a metaphor for material change, but as a process of inner refinement. Imagine your mind as a crucible. Each conscious thought, each observation adds clarity, dissolves confusion, and refines perception. Over time, the internal world becomes coherent, aligned, and radiant, reflecting the harmony of universal law. The law of mentalism is subtle, yet powerful. It teaches that change begins not outside, but inside. Most attempts at external transformation fail because they ignore the unseen mind, the true field of creation. By understanding and practicing mental discipline, you become the architect of your experiences. You begin to see that challenges are not obstacles, but messages, reflections of inner alignment or misalignment. Each mental adjustment, each shift in focus, has tangible effects, even if gradual. The student who embraces this law gains insight into patterns, cycles, and archetypes governing both personal and collective existence. The first step in this inner journey is noticing thoughts, noticing emotional reactions, noticing the subtle sensations that indicate alignment or disharmony. Awareness without judgment is the key. As you observe, your mind naturally begins to separate from automatic reactions. This space, this pause, is where transformation occurs. Thoth reminds us that the mind is both canvas and painter. By observing without interference, you allow creation to unfold, guided by conscious choice rather than unconscious habit. Small moments of awareness accumulate, and over time, the internal landscape becomes a map of conscious evolution. Visualize now the concept of the universal mind as a vast ocean. Your personal mind is a drop within it. When you recognize that your thoughts resonate with the currents of this ocean, you realize the potential to navigate it consciously. This is not mystical, it is practical. Thought focused with awareness becomes a vehicle for understanding patterns, uncovering archetypal guidance, and aligning with universal rhythms. Each day, each observation, each reflection increases your capacity to influence the quality of your internal and external reality. As we continue, reflect on your current mental patterns. Are they reactive or intentional? Do they reflect inherited conditioning or conscious choice? Awareness allows you to distinguish between the two. When patterns of fear, expectation, or limitation arise, see them as opportunities to realign with conscious intent. The law of mentalism teaches that the mind is the ultimate instrument of creation. By tuning it, observing it, and gently directing it, you begin to harmonize with the intelligence that Thoth described, a mind that is universal, infinite, and conscious of itself. In this practice, symbols, visualization, and inner dialogue are not fanciful. They are tools of precise alignment. The more you engage with your mental images consciously, the more you refine the field of awareness. Archetypes serve as reference points, mirrors of universal law, and guides to subtle understanding. Consider your life as a canvas, your mind as the brush, and Thoth's teachings as the palette. Every thought you hold shapes the image. Every insight adds depth. Every reflection introduces clarity. This is conscious creation at its most refined, subtle, yet deeply transformative. The challenge lies in patience. Mentalism is not a quick fix. It is a continuous journey. As you observe your thoughts and align with the archetypal patterns of reality, small shifts accumulate. Over time, these shifts reveal deeper clarity, insight, and resonance with universal law. Thoth emphasizes that the student must be both observer and participant, both mindful and engaged. Your attention becomes a tool, your awareness a lever, your intention the guiding star of transformation. Are you willing to take this step fully, to see beyond the habitual mind into the infinite mental plane? Remember that the law of mentalism is the foundation of all Hermetic knowledge. Without understanding it, the other 6 laws remain shadows, difficult to fully grasp. When the mind recognizes that the all is mind, that every event and every perception originates in thought, the student begins to perceive the subtle structures of existence. This awareness brings freedom, insight, and a deeper resonance with life itself. Those who practice this understanding report profound shifts, moments where the alignment feels undeniable, where the universe itself seems to respond to the clarity of consciousness. Notice now the subtle connection between mind, symbol, and reality. Symbols are vessels of mental energy. They carry archetypal weight, encoding lessons and truths across time and space. When you meditate upon them, reflect upon them, or simply observe them, they tune your consciousness to higher frequencies of understanding. This is the essence of initiation, as taught by Thoth, Hermes Trismegistos, and the ancient sages. Each encounter with symbol, each reflection upon thought, becomes a conscious alignment with the universal mind. Consider the paradox. The all is mind, yet this mind is beyond full comprehension. The realization is not an end, but a beginning. Awareness is the gateway. Practice is the path. By observing your thoughts, aligning with archetypes, and refining your inner dialogue, you cultivate a conscious relationship with the universal mind. This is the essence of mental alchemy. Small daily acts of attention ripple outward, shifting perception, experience, and alignment with life itself. Do you feel the subtle power stirring within, the awakening of mental awareness? Thoth reminds the seeker that transformation is subtle, continuous, and precise. It is not about dramatic moments, but about the slow accumulation of clarity, awareness, and alignment. Mentalism invites patience, observation, and intentional focus. Each thought, each reflection, each moment of awareness is a step toward mastering the mind as the instrument of creation. The world you perceive is inseparable from the thoughts you cultivate. By refining them, observing them, and directing them consciously, you begin to harmonize with the eternal intelligence that governs all existence. Your journey into the law of mentalism is ongoing. The teachings of Thoth offer guidance, symbols, and reflections, but the path is yours to walk. Each observation, each insight, each alignment is a brushstroke in the evolving masterpiece of consciousness. Mentalism is the foundation, your awareness, the tool. As you continue, notice the subtle interplay between thought, perception, and manifestation. Each step is both practice and revelation, guiding you toward deeper insight and resonance. The path is subtle, yet profoundly transformative. The moment you recognize that your thoughts are not merely reactions, but the very source of creation, a subtle tremor courses through your perception of reality. Imagine the mind not as a container for life's experiences, but as the forge where every event, every encounter, every sensation is shaped before it manifests. The law of mentalism is not a theory to be nodded at politely. It is a living, pulsating architecture of existence. Within it lies a power most overlooked, the capacity to perceive life as a reflection of internal alignment, a reflection of focus, intention, and the subtle language of thought itself. Each mental image carries weight, frequency, and resonance. When aligned with the archetypes encoded in Thoth's teachings, these images amplify beyond imagination, subtly restructuring perception. Close your eyes and feel the mind's river, flowing, reflective, and infinite. Notice how thought precedes all, yet moves silently beneath awareness, like a hidden current beneath calm waters. This is not mysticism. It is the operating principle of consciousness itself, invisible yet undeniable, shaping your reality in ways unnoticed yet profound. Consider now the paradox that often eludes ordinary reflection. The mind is simultaneously limited and infinite. It is bound by the structures of personal conditioning, yet it is capable of perceiving and influencing realms far beyond the apparent. What if the limitations you experience are not external at all, but mental thresholds waiting to be recognized and redefined? Each pattern, each habitual reaction is a signpost, a subtle invitation to see differently. Mentalism asks you not to change circumstances outwardly, but to change the lens inwardly. As Thoth implied in his Emerald Tablet, understanding the mind as the all is a gateway, the bridge between perception and creation, between the seen and the unseen. Visualize yourself navigating a labyrinth where each turn reflects the architecture of thought itself. Awareness of these corridors, of the hidden patterns, shifts your experience. You realize the map you walk is not external, but entirely a creation of the mind, responsive to focus, clarity, and intentional perception. In everyday life, most accept that external events dictate experience, that circumstances are random and beyond control. Mentalism, however, reveals a different truth. What appears as external is often the echo of internal alignment. Your mind, like a tuning fork, resonates with patterns and frequencies that shape perceived reality. Subtle, yet powerful, this alignment works silently, often unnoticed, until attention awakens. Imagine a room filled with mirrors. Each thought you hold reflects back with magnified influence. Fear, doubt, expectation, desire, each becomes a lens, amplifying or distorting the reflection of life. Awareness allows you to adjust these lenses, fine-tune perception, and influence the resonance of the unfolding moment. It is not manipulation, it is conscious harmonization. Thoth's wisdom reminds us that the mental plane is not a playground but a precise instrument, requiring attention, discipline, and subtlety. Each moment of focused awareness is a recalibration of reality, a refinement of the internal compass directing existence. Every archetype, every symbol carries latent power. Mentalism teaches that symbols are not merely abstract images. They encode layers of universal logic, patterns, and frequencies that interact with the mind at a level below ordinary awareness. Engage with these symbols deeply, not as decoration, but as active participants in the shaping of consciousness. A single visualization, repeated with intentionality, shifts the mental landscape. The scribe of the gods, Thoth, used symbols to transmit knowledge across time, to encode principles that bypass ordinary reasoning and speak directly to the architecture of thought. Picture the pyramid, the eye, the serpent. They are not mere objects, but catalysts, activating latent understanding within your mind. Each encounter with symbol, each reflection, each internal recognition aligns neural patterns with universal currents. In subtle ways, these mental harmonics begin to structure life in accordance with inner clarity, demonstrating that comprehension alone is insufficient without integration into daily mental practice. Notice the space between thoughts, the silent pause before a reaction occurs. It is here that mastery is cultivated, for the law of mentalism does not act through force, but through recognition. Observing this gap, the liminal space between stimulus and response, allows the mind to influence rather than be influenced. In that pause, you hold the key to subtle creation, the ability to see potential outcomes before they materialize, the capacity to align intention with archetypal patterns. Many seek power externally, not realizing it resides in observing, refining, and directing the currents of thought. The universe, in all its apparent complexity, responds to this subtle guidance. Consider your day as a series of mental experiments, noticing, adjusting, aligning. Each adjustment does not demand dramatic action. It requires refined observation and disciplined attention, which over time recalibrate both perception and experience in profound ways. Time itself is a reflection of thought. Mentalism suggests that past, present, and future exist not sequentially, but as mental constructs, accessible through focus and alignment. When the mind grasps this, the linearity of experience begins to dissolve, revealing cycles, correspondences, and layers of reality previously unnoticed. Imagine life as a fractal of moments, each reflecting infinite permutations of thought. Awareness allows navigation within this fractal, recognizing patterns and choosing alignments that shape the unfolding of experience. The mental plane operates with precision, yet invisibly, responding to the quality, clarity, and resonance of thought. Those who observe deeply report subtle synchronicities, shifts in perception, and a sense of co-creation with the living mind of the universe. Thoth's teaching is clear. Mastery begins in recognition, not in force, and continues in conscious participation with the currents of thought. Patterns of thought often repeat unconsciously. The beginner in mental alchemy mistakes this for fate, inevitability, or circumstance. Mentalism reveals these repetitions as instructive, indicators of alignment or misalignment. Each pattern carries information, where the mind is focused, what it believes, and how it structures experience. By observing these mental echoes, the practitioner learns to differentiate between conditioned responses and conscious choice. This observation is neither judgment nor critique. It is awareness. Through awareness, the mind gradually recalibrates itself, harmonizing with universal law. Even subtle, incremental adjustments create cascading effects, refining perception, emotion, and response. The unseen mental plane, once acknowledged, becomes a laboratory for transformation, where every thought is both an experiment and a teaching, a reflection and a tool. Consider also the interplay of polarity within thought. Every mental image carries dual aspects: potential and limitation, light and shadow, expansion and contraction. Mentalism teaches that recognition of these polarities is essential, not to suppress one side, but to harmonize both. Thought becomes balanced, focused, and capable of resonating with universal patterns. Imagine two currents flowing within the mind, initially opposed, eventually aligned. This alignment is subtle but profound, transforming perception, emotional resonance, and interaction with the world. Thoth's wisdom conveys that polarity is not an obstacle, but a structural law inherent in mental and cosmic planes. When understood, it becomes a tool of conscious creation, guiding the practitioner in navigating mental currents with clarity, precision, and purpose. Emotional resonance is inseparable from mental formation. Thoughts carry feelings, and feelings carry amplification. Mentalism is experienced as both intellectual understanding and somatic awareness. Observe how your body reacts to a particular thought, how subtle tension, lightness, or energy manifests. These reactions are not distractions, but data, signals of alignment or resistance. By attending to these signals, you integrate the law of mentalism into lived experience. You refine not only perception, but the very vehicle through which reality is experienced. Thoth's archetypes serve as guides, helping the mind decode these signals, offering reference points and tuning consciousness to deeper patterns. Even without dramatic effort, subtle shifts accumulate, revealing the hidden architecture of both inner and outer worlds. Memory itself is a tool of the mind, an archive of mental patterns and images. Mentalism teaches that by revisiting and recontextualizing memory, the mind can shift patterns and create new alignments. Thoth's teachings often reference memory as a sacred archive, a record of archetypal interactions, and the source of insight. Engage with memory not as nostalgia, but as a laboratory for conscious alignment. Observe past mental reactions, relive internal experiences, and notice their patterns. Subtle awareness of these dynamics allows conscious recalibration, turning previously automatic cycles into deliberate, intentional constructions. This is mental alchemy in motion, the subtle refinement of thought into tools for perception, insight, and alignment with universal law. Reflection, observation, and visualization are not optional. They are the instruments through which mentalism becomes tangible. When you see thought as the sculptor of experience, every mental practice becomes meaningful. A single moment of awareness can illuminate vast internal landscapes. Thoth encoded practices to activate these insights, focusing on a symbol, tracing a thought to its archetypal source, or observing the subtle interplay of attention and response. These are not tricks, rituals, or superficial exercises. They are processes of alignment with the living mind of the universe. Each act of observation sharpens perception, refines attention, and deepens connection to the mental plane. Over time, these repeated calibrations create a feedback loop of insight, expanding awareness and aligning consciousness with universal patterns. Even the act of questioning becomes a tool. Mentalism invites inquiry, not for answers alone, but for expansion of perception. Asking the right question opens the mind to dimensions unseen, activating subtle recognition and awareness. Consider questions that challenge habitual thought. What if my perception creates reality? Or how does my attention shape the unfolding moment? These are not abstract musings, but gateways to subtle alignment. Thoth's archetypes respond to inquiry, revealing patterns, connections, and resonances otherwise unnoticed. The mind, once engaged in disciplined curiosity, becomes a living instrument, resonant with the mental currents that shape experience. Each question generates subtle feedback, opening doors to insight and awareness previously dormant. Patterns of synchronicity emerge naturally when mental alignment deepens. Mentalism teaches that coincidences are not random, but reflective of internal harmonics. When attention, intention, and awareness converge, the world mirrors this alignment in subtle, often invisible ways. Notice small events, recurring themes, and unexpected clarity. These are indicators of resonance with universal law. Thoth's teachings highlight the importance of observing without forcing interpretation. Awareness itself is the bridge between internal clarity and external reflection. Each moment of noticing strengthens perception, hones focus, and reinforces alignment with the mental currents that underlie existence. The student begins to read reality as a living text, authored by thought, perception, and alignment. Awareness of the mental plane also reframes obstacles. Challenges are no longer seen as external impositions, but as reflections of misalignment, subtle nudges guiding the mind to refine perception. Each difficulty becomes an opportunity to recalibrate attention, clarify intention, and harmonize internal states. Mentalism is less about control and more about conscious responsiveness. The mind, once attentive and aligned, interacts with life as a co-creator rather than a passive observer. Thoth encoded this understanding as an archetypal principle. Mastery is achieved through observation, alignment, and intentional participation in the currents of consciousness. Patterns of influence, both subtle and overt, emerge when thought is intentionally observed. Mentalism invites the practitioner to recognize recurring themes, repeating circumstances, and habitual mental responses. These patterns are not restrictions, but maps, indicating where awareness can be applied to shift outcomes subtly. By observing without judgment, the mind learns to distinguish between inherited conditioning and conscious choice. Each observation refines perception, enhancing the ability to navigate both internal and external landscapes with clarity. The subtle nature of these adjustments ensures transformation without effort, revealing that mastery resides in awareness, not force. Every thought you allow to surface carries a subtle signature, a vibration that extends beyond the apparent confines of mind and body. The law of mentalism reveals that even what seems insignificant, fleeting, or trivial holds a blueprint for the reality that manifests around you. It is not in grand gestures or dramatic insights that the power of thought is revealed, but in the precise alignment of small, deliberate mental movements that ripple outward imperceptibly, yet inevitably. Imagine your mind as a telescope pointed into a universe of infinite reflections, each lens capturing the interplay of intention and reality. As you refine focus, previously hidden connections emerge. Ideas, encounters, and synchronistic events that once seemed unrelated begin to form a coherent pattern. This is not coincidence. It is the reflection of internal harmonics influencing external perception. Let your awareness settle on this. The apparent chaos of life is a canvas waiting for the discipline and clarity of thought. Consider how mental energy shapes not only perception, but also memory. Memories are not static. They are lenses constantly reframed by current awareness. The law of mentalism teaches that by observing, contextualizing, and subtly reorienting these memories, the mind can reshape its own framework for understanding reality. Thoth described this principle as the art of inner reconstruction. Each recollection, each mental impression, carries both history and potential. When attended to with precision, memories become not burdens but tools, capable of illuminating latent patterns and informing conscious creation. Notice how your mental landscape shifts when you reinterpret experiences through the lens of alignment rather than habitual judgment. Each shift, even subtle, reinforces the understanding that the all is mind, that reality is not a fixed structure, but a living, responsive field of mental dynamics. Attention, once directed, functions like a compass in the labyrinth of thought. The law of mentalism emphasizes the power of focused awareness. When the mind dwells aimlessly, external conditions seem unpredictable, uncontrollable, or random. When focus sharpens, patterns emerge, and the seemingly external world aligns in subtle reflection of inner clarity. This is not manipulation, but synchronization, a conscious attunement to the currents of the universal mind. Thoth likened this to tuning a stringed instrument. The precise alignment of tension and resonance produces harmonious sound. In mental practice, The string is the thought, and the vibration it carries shapes both perception and experience. Awareness becomes the conductor, guiding internal harmonics toward coherent manifestation. Even mundane daily activities acquire depth when observed with the eye of conscious alignment, revealing that reality is responsive, pliable, and deeply interconnected with the state of mind. Perception itself is a reflection of mental structure. The law of mentalism reveals that what you perceive as the world is inseparable from the architecture of your own consciousness. Objects, events, and experiences are not inert. They are interactive projections of mental patterns, echoes of alignment or misalignment. Recognizing this changes everything. The environment is no longer external authority, but a responsive mirror. Each interaction, each encounter, reflects the state of attention and intentionality within. Thoth's teachings suggest that mastery begins with noticing these reflections, deciphering their meaning, and integrating subtle guidance into conscious choices. Even brief moments of focused observation reveal layers of influence, patterns previously invisible, and insights that reshape understanding. Every perception becomes a portal, an invitation to explore the subtler dimensions of mind that underlie the apparent reality. Now imagine your emotions as instruments tuned by thought. Emotional resonance and mental formation are inseparable. Feelings are not reactions, but signals of mental alignment. When thought and feeling harmonize, perception becomes refined, and subtle changes manifest in experience. Mentalism invites the practitioner to treat emotions not as obstacles or distractions, but as indicators of resonance, tools for navigating unseen currents. Thoth described the interplay of mind and feeling as the engine of conscious creation, a subtle mechanism where intention and attention converge. Observing the quality of emotional response, adjusting mental focus, and refining perception creates feedback loops that amplify alignment with universal patterns. Even fleeting sensations become informative, guiding the mind toward coherent understanding and conscious influence. Symbols operate as active agents in mental alignment. Mentalism teaches that archetypes and visual representations encode universal patterns, subtle instructions for attuning the mind. Thoth utilized symbols to convey multidimensional concepts, bypassing linear understanding and speaking directly to the architecture of consciousness. The practitioner engages with these symbols through reflection, visualization, and resonance, activating latent recognition within the mind. A single image, contemplated with awareness, can recalibrate perception and influence mental alignment far beyond initial observation. Each encounter with symbol is a microcosm of mental practice, a bridge to archetypal understanding, and a subtle lever for conscious navigation of reality. Even without overt effort, alignment deepens, reinforcing that the mind shapes experience from unseen dimensions. Mental discipline is subtle, not coercive. Mentalism is not about forceful manipulation, but the deliberate refinement of focus, observation, and intention. Thoth's teachings emphasize patience. Awareness accumulates, resonance strengthens, and clarity emerges progressively. The practitioner observes patterns without judgment, noticing habitual responses, recurrent thoughts, and subtle reactions. This disciplined observation allows unconscious tendencies to be seen, understood, and gradually integrated into conscious direction. Even small, repeated acts of attention serve as catalysts for transformation, realigning perception and subtle energies. In this way, mastery of the mental plane unfolds as both awareness and practice, a continuous dialogue with the architecture of consciousness itself. Imagine the mind as a network of currents, each thought a potential node of influence. When these currents are aligned, coherence emerges, and the field of perception responds harmoniously. Mentalism emphasizes the relationship between focus, intention, and resonance. Clarity within generates clarity without. Observing this network, noticing which currents reinforce or disrupt alignment, and consciously adjusting focus allows the practitioner to navigate the mental field with precision. Thoth described this as the tuning of consciousness, the harmonization of thought with archetypal patterns. Each mental adjustment, though subtle, compounds over time, creating shifts in perception, insight, and experience that reveal the intricate, responsive structure of reality itself. Awareness of temporal perception deepens understanding. Mentalism suggests that past, present, and future are constructs, flexible and interconnected within the mind. By observing patterns of memory, anticipation, and expectation, the practitioner navigates temporal landscapes consciously, aligning thought with archetypal rhythms. Thoth's teachings imply that mastery of mental time is not abstract but experiential. By focusing awareness, subtle synchronicities emerge, revealing the responsive nature of consciousness. Each observation of temporal interplay creates opportunity for realignment, demonstrating that time is not a barrier, but a medium through which mental currents shape perception, choices, and resonance with universal law. Mental alchemy is subtle but precise. The practitioner observes thoughts, memories, and emotions as tools for refining alignment, rather than externalizing control or seeking immediate outcomes. Thoth described this process as both science and art. Awareness, observation, and subtle intention coalesce to structure experience in accordance with mental law. Every observation, every recalibration, every focused reflection contributes to the refinement of consciousness. The law of mentalism does not demand dramatic transformation, but invites precision, patience, and attention. Even minute adjustments accumulate, revealing patterns previously unnoticed and opening access to deeper layers of perception, archetypal understanding, and subtle influence over the mental field. Consider the interplay of mental focus and physical presence. Mentalism emphasizes that thought and attention reverberate through perception, subtly influencing physiological states, sensations, and interactions. Awareness of these subtle reverberations allows the practitioner to observe the mind-body continuum as a responsive instrument. Thoth encoded practices that engaged awareness with embodiment, observing subtle sensations, aligning thought with internal experience, and harmonizing mental patterns with somatic resonance. Each observation refines attention, aligns perception, and reinforces the principle that the all is mind. Shifts in attention create ripples that extend through consciousness, shaping perception and subtly influencing events. Thoth encoded this principle as a blueprint. The mind is both lens and projector, and clarity of observation amplifies alignment with archetypal order. Even fleeting mental focus, when deliberate, creates structural shifts in awareness. Each moment of precise attention compounds, revealing connections, patterns, and synchronizations previously unseen. Observing the interplay between focus, perception, and subtle resonance transforms ordinary cognition into a laboratory for conscious creation. Memory is not a passive storehouse, but an active medium of influence. Mentalism shows that recalling, reframing, and reinterpreting memories shapes perception of reality in profound ways. Thoth's teachings emphasize that awareness, reflection, and subtle adjustment of memory create internal alignment, activating latent archetypal structures. Observing recurring themes, habitual interpretations, and emotional coloring allows the practitioner to recalibrate perception, subtly influencing both present experience and future expectations. Even minor shifts in interpretation of past events resonate through consciousness, altering perception, attention, and resonance in ways that are invisible yet impactful. Memory becomes a tool for subtle mastery, a way to align mind with universal patterns. Internal dialogue is a dynamic instrument of perception. Mentalism demonstrates that habitual self-talk shapes awareness, patterns thought, and influences mental resonance. Observing these narratives without attachment allows the practitioner to distinguish inherited conditioning from deliberate creation. Thoth encoded this understanding symbolically, revealing that conscious attention to internal discourse fosters precision, clarity, and subtle alignment. Each observation of internal dialogue recalibrates attention, allowing resonance with archetypal currents. Over time, this practice generates internal coherence, enhancing perception, insight, and subtle influence over unfolding experience. Even the act of noticing becomes a transformative process, aligning mental structures with universal law. Emotions are subtle indicators of mental alignment, not obstacles or distractions. Mentalism teaches that observing emotional responses with awareness allows recalibration of attention and resonance. Thoth's archetypes encode subtle guidance for recognizing emotional signals as diagnostic tools. Each emotion carries information about thought patterns, internal resonance, and alignment with universal principles. By observing, reflecting, and subtly adjusting internal focus, the practitioner harmonizes mental and emotional currents, producing coherence that subtly manifests in perception. Even fleeting emotional impressions, when attended to deliberately, provide insight and guidance, reinforcing alignment with the deeper patterns of consciousness. Symbols serve as active triggers within the mental landscape. Mentalism demonstrates that archetypes, images, and internalized representations encode universal patterns, offering pathways to alignment and awareness. Thoth's teachings show that engagement with symbols does not require extraordinary intervention. Subtle observation, reflection, and resonance activate latent understanding within consciousness. Each symbol encountered with attention refines perception, amplifies awareness, and strengthens internal coherence. Even a brief, deliberate focus on symbolic structure generates resonance that realigns mental and perceptual patterns. Symbols are not decoration, but precise tools for subtle mental calibration and navigation of consciousness. Temporal perception is a flexible medium of awareness. Mentalism shows that past, present, and future coexist in the architecture of consciousness. Observing patterns across time, reflecting on cycles, and aligning attention allows the practitioner to influence perception and expectation subtly. Thoth's encoded principles imply that mastery of temporal awareness is mastery of mental alignment. Understanding cycles, synchronizations, and recurrent themes amplifies coherence. Even minor shifts in perception of temporal flow create ripples, aligning internal resonance with universal structure. Awareness of temporal dynamics enhances insight, intuition, and subtle navigation of experience. Attention itself is a creative force. Mentalism emphasizes that focused awareness structures perception, aligns internal patterns, and amplifies resonance. Thoth described attention as both instrument and medium. Where it rests, influence follows. Observing attention, refining its precision, and guiding it intentionally generates subtle shifts that cascade through consciousness. Even brief moments of disciplined focus realign internal patterns, amplify perception, and activate latent capacities. Awareness of attention becomes a dynamic practice, shaping experience in ways invisible yet profound. Each act of focus strengthens alignment with universal principles, demonstrating that mental mastery is subtle, cumulative, and deeply transformative. Resonance between thought and reality is continuous, yet unnoticed. Mentalism reveals that each mental vibration produces echoes in perception, subtly influencing experience. Thoth's teachings encoded methods for observing, refining, and harmonizing resonance. Observing subtle echoes, calibrating focus, and aligning intention amplify coherence. Even imperceptible adjustments accumulate, revealing patterns previously unnoticed. Perception becomes a mirror, reflecting internal alignment. Awareness of resonance deepens understanding, demonstrating that the mind shapes reality with precision and responsiveness. Each subtle observation reinforces mastery of internal patterns and external reflections. Every mental structure has latent potential, waiting to be activated by precise attention. Mentalism shows that intentional observation unlocks hidden layers of awareness, guiding subtle influence over perception. Thoth encoded this as archetypal templates, for mental calibration. Observing, reflecting, and subtly adjusting thought patterns activates these latent structures, amplifying alignment with universal currents. Even routine moments contain opportunities for refinement and attunement. Each mental adjustment contributes to subtle coherence, enhancing insight, perception, and resonance with the law of mentalism. Awareness becomes the laboratory for mastery, the mind itself the instrument and medium of transformation. Habits of thought are neither fixed nor immutable. Mentalism emphasizes observation and subtle recalibration, revealing patterns that guide perception and experience. Thoth's archetypes encode frameworks for recognizing habitual cycles and integrating them with intentional alignment. Observing recurring patterns, adjusting attention, and integrating subtle shifts produces coherent resonance. Even minor recognition without judgment triggers realignment, influencing perception, focus, and subtle mental currents. Awareness of habitual structures empowers conscious navigation, amplifying insight, subtle influence, and alignment with universal mental laws. Each observation and adjustment strengthens internal coherence, revealing mastery as incremental yet precise. Imagination is a tool for alignment, not mere fantasy. Mentalism shows that internally generated imagery reflects archetypal structures, providing guidance and resonance. Thoth encoded this principle in symbolic language, demonstrating that deliberate visualization refines attention and activates latent understanding. Observing and engaging imagination as a tool for alignment transforms internal perception, producing subtle adjustments in awareness. Each intentional mental image resonates with universal patterns, enhancing clarity, insight, and subtle influence. Even brief visualization, when aligned with attention, generates cumulative resonance, deepening the practitioner's capacity to navigate mental landscapes with precision. The interplay of thought, attention, and emotion produces subtle feedback loops. Mentalism teaches that observing these loops without interference allows recalibration, refinement, and alignment. Thoth encoded archetypes as indicators of alignment, guiding observation and subtle adjustment. Each observation of interrelated patterns produces shifts in perception, understanding, and internal coherence. Even micro-adjustments in thought, focus, or emotional response generate cascading effects. Awareness of these loops reinforces mastery, revealing that internal dynamics continuously shape perception, experience, and resonance with universal patterns. Observation itself becomes transformative, precise, and deeply responsive. The mental field is multidimensional, extending beyond ordinary awareness. Mentalism demonstrates that perception, memory, and attention interact across multiple layers, each influencing the other. Thoth's symbols encode multidimensional frameworks for understanding and alignment. Observing interactions across layers, recognizing patterns, and adjusting attention produces coherence and subtle influence over experience. Even small disciplined shifts create compounding resonance, revealing the depth and responsiveness of consciousness. Awareness of multidimensional dynamics enhances insight, alignment, and subtle mastery of perception. The mind becomes both navigator and instrument of subtle influence across layers of reality. Paradigms of reality are mutable within the mental landscape. Mentalism emphasizes observing assumptions, beliefs, and habitual frameworks as flexible structures. Thoth encoded symbols to illustrate this mutability, offering insight into subtle realignment. Observation without attachment allows the practitioner to recalibrate perception, revealing hidden coherence and latent potential. Even long-held beliefs, once examined deliberately, reveal patterns for adjustment, producing subtle shifts in perception and alignment. Awareness of mental frameworks fosters insight, deep resonance, and conscious navigation of the responsive mental field. Each observation compounds, reinforcing precision, clarity, and mastery of the law of mentalism. Patterns of cause and effect are mirrored in thought. Mentalism shows that perception of sequence is influenced by internal alignment. Thoth's archetypes encode recognition of these patterns, guiding observation and subtle adjustment. Observing links between mental states, intentions, and outcomes produces coherence and insight. Even minute adjustments in attention and focus influence perception and subtle dynamics in the unfolding experience. Awareness of these mirrored patterns reinforces mastery, revealing that internal alignment shapes perception, experience, and subtle influence over reality. Each observation amplifies clarity and responsiveness within the mental field. Mentalism reframes the ordinary as extraordinary. Each moment, thought, and interaction contains latent insight, resonating beyond immediate perception. Thoth encoded this principle symbolically, showing that subtle observation uncovers hidden coherence, activating latent understanding. Awareness of these resonances transforms perception, aligns internal structures, and enhances subtle influence. Even routine mental activity, when attended to deliberately, becomes a vehicle for insight, resonance, and alignment. The mind, refined through observation and subtle adjustment, navigates reality with precision, subtlety, and cumulative coherence. Each insight compounds, deepening mastery, awareness, and alignment with universal mental principles. The practitioner's awareness itself becomes the instrument of influence. Mentalism emphasizes that conscious observation, refined attention, and deliberate reflection calibrate perception and activate latent capacities. Thoth's teachings encoded archetypes as templates for subtle alignment and insight. Observing thought, attention, and resonance allows the practitioner to navigate the mental field with precision, amplifying coherence and responsiveness. Even micro-adjustments produce cascading shifts, revealing the interconnectedness of mind, perception, and universal patterns. Awareness is both laboratory and instrument, enabling mastery through subtle, cumulative, and precise observation. Before moving forward, anchor your commitment to this journey by commenting, "I align my mind with the law of mentalism." This is the key, a symbolic seal of resonance that connects you to the archetypal flow of Thoth's wisdom. Let this phrase resonate in your awareness as a declaration of subtle engagement, a quiet acknowledgement that the mind is the bridge between perception and the unseen structure of reality. Every thought carries the weight of creation, and every moment of focused attention is a chance to realign with the infinite architecture of consciousness. Recognizing this is not a conclusion, but a doorway. Those who feel the pulse of this resonance are invited to continue observing, refining, and attuning, allowing subtle currents to guide perception, intuition, and inner insight. The mind, once conscious of its power, becomes the silent alchemist, shaping reality in ways both visible and hidden. For those ready to deepen this exploration, consider joining this space as a seeker among seekers. Subscribing is not a mere act, but a gesture of belonging, a recognition of being part of an invisible circle dedicated to insight, alignment, and the sacred refinement of the mind. This is an initiation in thought, a subtle acknowledgement that the journey of consciousness is ongoing and the key lies within.